Welcome back to Golden State Hoop, our Warriors and Valkyries podcast. And if you've been hanging out with us in the Discord, I think we'll have some relevant conversations, especially including the Valkyries. We've had some really good Valkyries conversations going on in the Discord. And if you are interested in joining the Discord, gg@bspnmedia.com. On today's show, Brian and I are going to talk about the Warriors. The season is upon us. By this time next week, they will have played a basketball game, which seems kind of crazy. Does the season seem early for you? I'm assuming it's the same time every year, and it just feels early to me.
I feel like, I don't know if fatigue is the word, but when you start following like the NBA and WNBA closely, like I think everything just starts to mesh together. That it's just like, oh, one league's about to end, the next one's about to start. One's about to end, the next one's about to start.
It kind of works pretty well that way, though, if you're a fan of both. It's
100%.
nice in that way. Yeah,
I
basketball.
also love, like, I know from a scheduling perspective how much it sucks on the WNBA side that say you're Paige Beckers and you just win a championship in UConn and then a week later you're at the draft. Like, that sucks. But from a viewing perspective,
it's kind
that's year round. It's so great.
It is kind of fun like that. And we'll talk about that because I think there's a conversation to be had. You shared something in the Discord about early draft boards for the WNBA, and we'll get to this when we talk about this. But I was just kind of joking that watching women's college basketball this year for me is literally going to be about who can the Valkyries take. We're assuming right now that they'll be pick number 8, though I don't think it's official. So we'll talk about all that stuff too, the offseason for the WNBA, the primer, whether or not Kathy is going to be around. That's the conversation. But we're going to start Warriors first. The history of this podcast, at least Golden State Hoop, which is we have not done many of these yet, but the history so far has been that we start Valkyries, but it is flipped now because the Warriors season is upon us. Valkyries in the offseason. So we'll do the second half of this show talking Valkyries, but we are going to start with the death lineup portion of this podcast. Warriors. All right, so the Warriors season preview here. I don't know about you, and you have to tell me what you are feeling about this because I'm kind of giddy about this team, and I know there are lots of warning signs when it comes to age. But when I look at this basketball team, I go, man, this is going to be a very enjoyable team with a couple of caveats. The main one being age and injuries. And I think secondly, I think everyone's penciling OKC in as like they're just going to go back to back. And historically in the NBA, that has been very hard to do. Some of it is because when you finally go through that championship season, you're not just playing 82 games. You're playing 82 games and then plus. And then when we get to the conference finals and the finals, those are kind of like 1.5 games versus just a normal regular season game. And so Oklahoma City, all of the things that you would believe a back-to-back contender would have. They have it. They have the youth. They have the depth. But historically, it is kind of a rare thing for teams to just easily cruise back-to-back. 2016 Warriors, they were the best regular season team of all time, and they still fell in the finals. So I think some of it for me is like just the history of the NBA tells me that Oklahoma City will be good, but they're going to have to probably get through some hoops that maybe they didn't have to get through last year on their rise to their first championship. So some of it is that. And then I think some of it is like, I just really want to celebrate whatever this end of Steph Curry's career is. Now, you are lucky enough to really where you first started watching basketball, he's just been in your life like the whole time. And for me, like he is the greatest Golden State Warrior that I've ever seen, like bar none. But also I had, 30 years watching basketball before he came into our lives. Not quite 30, probably closer to 25. But Well, am I like over the top here with my thinking, with my excitement, with what this Warriors team can be? And we'll break down why I believe that. But what is your initial reaction to me being so excited about this team?
I think your excitement's in the right place, although I think this OKC team is different than most championship teams. Like, I feel like I gotta imagine, I don't have the stats, but like I've gotta imagine they're like the youngest out of, if you look at the core of SGA, J-Dub, and Chet, like in terms of winning a championship, you can go down like the Jokic one, or the Boston one was relatively young, but of course Tatum's Achilles that but I guess I'm more so saying, like, I think it's sometimes difficult from a myriad of reasons, but also like injuries. And you think about the Bucks one where it's Giannis, Drew, and Middleton, maybe a little bit older of a trio. I just think OKC has a youthful trio with a lot of assets. I don't know their cap situation off the top of my head, but I could tell you right now, it's not like Clippers, Warriors, like, whoever else is up there. Like, I'm sure they have a little bit of comfortability, just in terms of the rest of the teams. I just feel like there could be, like, if Prestes has done all this and accumulated all these assets, like I just think they're so dangerous from a roster like accumulation perspective. Like, they could just get someone at the deadline just like the Warriors did, but like they can like add it to what they already have. And I don't know. I had a little spiel, I think, when towards the end of the season, where I'm just like looking at what they have on paper, how young they are, the assets they have. It's like, it would be pretty hard to mess this up, like what they've done so far. Just like, oh, Aaron Wiggins and a first will take your bad contract, but like good player, but like they just have so many options, whereas some of these other teams, like the Warriors, don't have many options. We're just like Kuminga or bust for a trade, and they kind of have all these different avenues they can go. Just basically getting Caruso for Giddey, right? There's so many of those they can do. So, I look at it like I think it's hard to go back to back in this league, but I think from the championship winners that we've seen in recent history, they're the ones that I think have the best chances to do it, and maybe have like a 3 championship in 4 years type of thing that the Warriors did. So, but I don't want to completely get rid of your excitement. I just think OKC is so good. But I think the Warriors are a top 3 contender in the West. I think it's them, Denver, and OKC. And I think that, what the fans we've been saying, like, get Steph a 2, and then they get Jimmy Butler, and then you see what could have happened in the playoffs had Steph not gone down. Like, now you have a full season. Jimmy Butler's integrated in training camp. Sure, he's not playing right now, but just being there and getting more chemistry and learning, more stuff about the organization, and getting camaraderie with your teammates, just all those little things that you kind of don't get when you just get thrust into a team in February or January or whenever it was. Like, that accumulated, and also with like Horford, and Horford just seems like a perfect fit in Golden State, just with, kind of knowing what he can bring and knowing what they need. Like, there's no like, I need to get 20, I need to start. Like, Kerr said that on TK's podcast. It's such a perfect fit. So, we've said it before, but this team, game 1 of Minnesota, if I look back in time, like, I remember we were worried because we went 7 in Houston and Minnesota went 5 or 6 in LA, and Minnesota had all this rest. They're a younger team. We were worried that the Warriors going to 7 and then having to play 2 days later in Minnesota, get on a flight. Like, we were worried that was not going to be great for the Warriors. That game 1 was not going to be good for the Warriors, and they won it, and they won it pretty convincingly. And had Steph not gone down, I'm sure everyone is saying that they would have won the series. So I think your excitement's in the right place. I just think that OKC is so damn good. Like, that's it. And also, really quick, I'll add in one more thing. We've had a Denver hump we haven't been able to get over since we beat them in the playoffs in 2022 or 23. It literally was like they had a regular season streak against us after we beat them in the playoffs in round 1 when we won the championship, up until like one of the last games of the season this past year. They had beaten us for like 2 or 3 years straight. You think about those games with the Jokic half-court buzzer beater against Looney. We almost get it, and then JK leaks to Shams that he's not happy or whatever. Like, that's all been like Denver wins and demoralizing wins, or I think there was a Christmas game, or there was something close to a Christmas game where I remember CP on the team and Jokic just getting ridiculous foul after ridiculous foul. I think they are also, someone who I want to see us match up against with this iteration of the team, and now they've also gotten better, So I think it's those three teams for me, though. I know Houston's probably one people want to hear. Yeah, they're four for me. So, and this isn't a regular season prediction. This is just who I think the contenders are. I don't think the Warriors are finishing top three. I think Houston's finishing top three, maybe two. I don't think the Warriors,
even without VanVleet.
Yes.
So okay, so let's kind of break it down. We're going to go through the roster because I think going through this roster is also what got me excited because they have so much depth. Now, the problem is the depth isn't balanced. It is heavy on old players and heavy on young players. You don't have those like kind of middle guys who are kind of just, in their own and getting into their prime. So starting five, somewhat, it could be this. We don't know if it's going to be this, but Steph, B-Pods, Jimmy Butler, Draymond, Al Horford. That is a very solid starting five. On the bench or on the injured list, at least coming into the season, DeAnthony Melton, who we really liked last year because of his fit, but then he got hurt, and he is actually a wild card. I know a lot of people are just thinking you're just going to be able to pencil him in, but look, he, ACL injury, he's got to come back, he's got to get healthy. Thankfully for the Warriors, they have some pieces that will allow him to come back slowly. One of those pieces, Seth Curry, who is also kind of on this weird roster exhibit contract or whatever they call it, in that he's going to miss probably the first month of the season at least before they can add him to the roster. Buddy Hield obviously was a super sub in the playoffs for us. He kind of came into his own, and maybe he's kind of that one guy who maybe is like in his prime, possibly. Buddy, I don't know, maybe we'll see. Pat Spencer is back on this roster, a Steve Kerr favorite. If this dude could only shoot the basketball, he's so fun to watch. He's so gritty. And then teams go, okay, enough of your hustle, enough of your, trying to challenge all of our guys. Shoot the ball. And he's like, sorry, I can't really shoot it that well.
Yeah.
Gary Payton II, he's back. We know what he is. He's exactly what he's always been. He's going to play some minutes defensively. He's going to hit some corner threes. And then there's going to be moments where he can't catch a basketball or dribble a basketball. And then he's going to be hurt. That's just the GP2 experience. We love him because of his heart and because he's the little big man catching alley-oops, but it's pretty predictable what he's going to offer. Then we have a young rookie who I'm kind of interested. Now, we only have a couple of preseason games, and yesterday's game I couldn't even watch because it was on Fubo and League Pass. I flipped on my Hulu live television, and I'm like, where's the game? And I click on it, and I go, oh, there it is. And I start to watch it, and I'm like, wait, this is last week's Portland game. This is not this week's Portland game. I'm like, Jimmy's not supposed to play this game. What happened? And so I go, okay, so I have the wrong game. So we didn't get to see it, but supposedly Will Richard had an excellent game, and Steve Kerr was like, yeah, like, I'm not scared to play this guy. Like, he plays basketball the right way. Though coming into this season, he's, I'm guessing, even behind Guy Santos. I don't even know what their roster looks like. He's probably number 14 on the roster. But it is kind of cool to see a young backcourt player who they believe in, who's athletic and who seems, he's a 4-year college player. He's like almost the same age as JK. Like,
I was about to say, well, how old is he?
Yeah, JK is like a few months older than him.
Yeah.
And so, he's got some miles under his belt, but at the same time, being 23 in the league as a rookie is not best case scenario for superstars either, but it seems like he's going to be of some value at some point during the season. And then backing up Jimmy Butler, we have JK and we have Moses Moody. It feels like these guys have been in our lives for much longer than just these 5 years or whatever it's been, 4 years and change. But we can go back to, years ago with the Kamudi watch. Like, these are our guys. Like, we've been down with JK. We've been down with Moses Moody. We desperately have been wanting JK to take it to the next level. He has not. And he probably won't in a Warriors uniform. We kind of have to be okay with that based on his new contract. Moses Moody is a grind guy. We saw maybe the best that he had played up to this point last year when they started him at power forward. He's Moses. He's everything that we've known him to be, and he's not everything that we've also known him to be. But still, easy. These are our guys. We root for them. And they're going to be bench depth pieces. Moses actually might get some starting time when Jimmy or Draymond goes to the bench. So backup bigs: Trace Jackson Davis, and our guy Guy Santos, and backing up also from the power forward and center position for Trace. So I think that's 14 players that I just mentioned.
Did you say Quentin Post?
Oh, no. Actually, no, I didn't even say Quentin Post. Quentin Post would be 14. So let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Well, you said Seth, and he doesn't count.
But I'm just talking bodies who will get minutes this year. I think that's 16 players.
What about Tuhi?
Yeah, and he's going to be on the two-way. I wonder
Jackson Rowe a two-way.
I wonder if we should go to any Santa Cruz games this year with Richard and Tui playing. But the point is they have so many players and guys that you can imagine, because of the idea that they're going to want to rest some guys. Some guys will be injured. That, it wouldn't be surprising to see Will Richard get a little bit of run mid-season. Seth Curry all of a sudden, in a closeout, offensively spreading the floor. It's going to be interesting to see how Kerr mixes and matches this stuff. But I think he's also thinking, like, at the same time, we can be a little bit more forceful in maybe resting Steph on a back-to-back or resting Jimmy on a back-to-back. We know Al is probably not playing back-to-back. So that's where I guess that's where you're sliding in Quentin Post or Trace Jackson Davis. So that's the roster. And I think the biggest positive for me is it's like the same team coming back with the exception of Al. Everyone else, you're not bringing back Looney. That's going to be something that the Warriors are going to have to get used to. He's a little bit of a when an emergency hit the red button kind of guy for Steve Kerr. And so they'll have to learn how to play without Looney, but that roster is essentially the same roster that they went into Houston and Minnesota last year. And we had thought that, man, this team could play with all of these teams. So I think that is my biggest reason why I'm so excited about it, because of what we saw at the end of last season. What are your thoughts about the roster? And does having too many players hold them back in any way?
No, it does not. I remember last year, some of like the criticism was like, okay, they have depth, but they have so many like 7 or 8 guys and not really any like 3 to 5 guys. Where like, like sure they have depth, but it's not like top end depth. It's more like this guy can give you minutes in the playoffs, but like maybe not as, a starter or as like a 6th man. Like this is like a 7th or 8th person off the bench that can give you a run in a playoff game. But I just think the addition of Al, like thinking about that Houston series, how much run Quentin Post had to get because they weren't turning to Loon, and Loon's expressed that he felt like they should have when they played so much Steven Adams, and Loon was like, that's who I match up against. That's the type of guy I'm good against. Why didn't they play me more against him?
Felt a little disrespected there.
He did, and rightfully so, but they played so much Quentin Post, whereas in this iteration, you could start Dre Horford, but when it matters, you could just flip-flop them as the 5. You don't have to turn to Quentin Post or Trace Jackson Davis or Loon, even though you can't anymore, but he did get run in that Houston series. But I just think about that, and like, you don't have to do that anymore. You could just, put Dre at the small ball 5 and then, Horford at the 5 and just keep, mix and matching that. And, I think I don't know what to think about Melton. Like, I think it's a great addition, and why not? I hope it kind of figures itself out, because I'm not loving the idea of Pat Spence as the backup 1.
Or
I know
B-Pods as the backup 1.
I don't love that either, but I think he needs to be that for his own like progression. But
you could see Melton and B-Pods
totally
handling the basketball
totally
together.
see that.
Yeah.
Yes, but it relies on this guy kind of being good post ACL. Was it ACL?
I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like the roster. I think I'm just wondering, like, do they have the guys in case, the stars need to play 60 to 65 games depending on injury or rest? Like, can they string together some wins? And you hope that, JK can help with that, before he gets traded, or if he gets traded. I'm just trying to think of like who can take another step, who could take another leap. And I mean, it's eyes on the top 3 touted young, quote unquote, young players on the roster being JK, Moody, and B-Pods.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, at this point, if you were going to make a guess, you're probably guessing it's Podziemski, right? But at the same time, sometimes he's got a little bit of YOLO in him that it may be too much for him. You kind of want him to be more reserved than he is, but you still want him to be confident, because he can actually make shots for them in ways that they do need it.
Yeah. I think there's a potential Moody leap as well, not necessarily from a shot creating perspective. I think we're kind of well past that, but just, I think he had a good 3-point percentage.
Yeah, hit the open 3.
Yeah, just be more reliant there. And then there was some, stuff at the rim I thought he did last year where he's like sneaky athletic because he has these long arms. Like, there's stuff there. So, and I actually have League Pass. So I watched about near half of the game before we started. And Will Richard did do some cool stuff. He did some stuff that's like, okay, I see why Kerr wanted to give you the start here. Just already recognizing that, hey, I'm a 22-year-old 4-year college player. Like, I'm not going to try to go the Kuminga route. Like, I recognize that, I need to help where I can help so I can get tick. And that's kind of, the classic Warriors MO with guys who either go undrafted or, go like I don't know. I think of like a poor guy, already forgetting his name, Anthony Lamb, right? Like, just someone who can, someone who's like, I know what I know what I'm not, and I'm just here to play hard so I can get minutes on this team. Because if you play hard and you hustle and you cater to Steph, you get minutes on this team. And I think Will Richard is a player who just already kind of has that out the gates, but there's a little bit of like athleticism and potential 3-and-D ability there that you want to see. And so I wonder, like, I feel like Will Richard's a player that's like, okay, you look at him now, he's the 14th man on the roster, but like Steve Kerr might just like on a whim just be like, okay, you're like in the rotation now. But yeah, I'm excited for the season to start. I'm really excited for the season to start.
And we mentioned last time we recorded about how many different places you're going to have to remember how to watch these games, and some of it's going to be on Amazon Prime. I like Amazon Prime in general, the way the app works. Like, you could start late, like, because I'm a DVR guy. I like to start these games like an hour late, and then I catch up. And instead of taking me 2.5 hours to watch the game, it takes me like an hour and a half instead. And you can do that on Amazon Prime. There's some games that are gonna be exclusive to Peacock, like not even gonna be on NBC. So you're going to have to be, the rhythm in which I watch this stuff is going to be a little bit different this year. And I'm going to have to play around with it.
It's going to suck.
The NBC games will get captured by my Hulu, so I'll have those on.
That's just
DVR.
I just want everything captured by Hulu like it
usually
is.
I know, me too. So, and then of course there's going to be the Bay Area sports games. We're going to see a lot of Fitz and Kalena as per usual. But okay, so now let me get into a little bit more about what it will take for the Warriors to be one of those top 3 teams, like you say. If you go back to 2021, a lot of things had to happen for them to win that championship. One of them was it was the season before Denver was ready to really take it to that next level. And so they caught Denver at the perfect time. And then if you remember the next 2 rounds, it was a not ready for prime time Memphis Grizzlies and a not ready for prime time Dallas Mavericks. It was like before Luka's ascent as well. I mean, Luka was great, but he was kind of a one-man show in that series. So they caught those teams at a great time. There was no other team in the West who's just running away with stuff, and it allowed them to use their veteran wiles when it came to postseason basketball, and they understood how to take advantage of all those series. And then they played a Boston Celtics team that was like 2 years too soon for that Celtics team. But that Celtics team, that series against the Warriors, I believe that that series specifically helped them get to the next level, because there were moments where, you know, they went up 2-1 in that series, and I think Celtics fans were very excited. But that's also at the end of that third game where the Celtics won. Iguodala was like, we got them. Like, he's like so sure that they were going to win the next 3 games, and they did. So things like that, I believe, do have to happen for the Warriors to get back into the swing of things. Oklahoma City may very well win 68 to 70 games. Will they have the same injury luck come postseason? Will they have any sort of hills that they have to run through or run up that weren't there last season? And that's some of why it's hard to repeat for Denver. Jokic has been awesome. You know, there's been no, I haven't seen anything from him that says he is slowing down at all. I think the Ringer had him number 1 as the best player in this season. So he is always going to be a thorn in their side. It's just the thing. He's a thorn in everybody's side, and they will have to strategically figure out how to beat him. And then for them, I think the thing that would really kill this season is if certain players got hurt at the wrong time, and if more than one player got hurt for an extended period of time. Like if Jimmy and Steph, if we're getting into game 65, 70, and they both get hurt and they're hobbling coming into the playoffs, that's just bad news for that team. But let's say Steph gets hurt, you know, Steph misses 5 games for whatever reason, middle of the season. Jimmy misses his 8 games, you know, 3 quarters through. And then by the time the playoffs start, they've got that behind them and they're ready to go. Like that would be the way that you could foresee the Warriors being ready come playoff time. And Houston, you know, Houston's going to take that growth spurt that they have, and then they're just adding one of the best scorers in NBA history to that team. So I'm not saying this is a cakewalk for the Warriors. I'm not saying the Warriors are winning the NBA championship. I just think that they have a really, really good basketball team, and I'm very interested to see how they compete against these other teams. And if you want to look at the East, Boston is not going to be Boston because they got no Tatum. The Cavs have ascended, I guess you could say, and they've taken their lumps throughout, but they have not convinced me that they are necessarily the team that anybody should be super scared of on the other side. The Knicks, sort of similar. I know Knicks fans are really excited. Jalen Brunson is a problem for everybody, but they haven't proven that they have everything that it takes to be the team to beat either. So I think the East, if you could actually get through the West, it doesn't really seem that hard to get through to actually win it. It may be one of those seasons where it's like, oh, you win the West, and the NBA Finals is kind of anticlimactic in that way. But again, that's just looking on paper right now. The Cavs and the Knicks and whomever, the Hawks may surprise some people. They could be, a barn burner kind of teams as well. But just the way that I see it on paper today before the season starts. So all of those things really do have to happen, I think, for the Warriors to be in that area of a top 3 or whatever, like you said. But because it's the beginning of the season, nothing has happened yet that can deter you. And I haven't even mentioned Minnesota, by the way. Minnesota's been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. So they're going to be coming. But that's just the intrigue with this basketball team. And I think they are smartly put together. And a lot of it is going to be injury luck. And I guess before we get to the Valkyrie stuff, what do you have an idea of what having Jimmy Butler on your team for a full season is going to look like?
I don't. I don't know. It just feels like things are different, and I feel like that's just me talking myself into convincing myself that something isn't going to happen. But he's not in a contract year. Like I because there's always this stuff with Jimmy that he's just kind of like he doesn't play that many regular season games. If you look at it, I don't think so. I think we talked about that when we acquired him, but I don't know. Vibes just seem high, man. Like there's no looming extension. Like he got paid, right? Like maybe I think could they extend him this year if they wanted to, but I'm excited. I truly am excited for a full year of Jimmy Butler. Like that I felt like hasn't even been a conversation on like talking shows of like, anything that could go bad. Like there was all of last year. Like acquiring Jimmy could be a death sentence to your team. Like he could just raise hell in the locker room. Like what the hell is that? I've seen none of that this year.
Well, he was happy, right? That's part of it. He does the thing. Like his game is everything that the Warriors aren't. Get to the free throw line, right? All 2-pointers, like money in the mid range, like all of those things that he does is like the Warriors don't do very well. So it's almost like he's like the perfect player to put on this team. The last time he played over 60 games, there's been 2 seasons. He played 60 games in 23-24 with Miami, and then he played 64 games in 22-23 with Miami, and then you'd have to go back to 18-19 when he was Minnesota and Philadelphia. He played 65 games. So, I mean, if the Warriors could get 65 games, 70 games out of him, I think they'd be really happy. I think that'd be kind of perfect for them. For him to sit between 12 and 15 games a year, some of it being rest, some of it is going to be some ailment. He plays a very physical style. So there's going to be something injury related, kind of like what happened in the playoffs, right? He falls right directly on his rear end after getting undercut or getting, I don't remember. Was it an undercut or he got pulled down or something?
I think it was like a little bit of an accidental undercut.
Yeah. And that's a hard foul, and that's the kind of thing that is going to take out an older player like that. The other thing about Al Horford that I think is going to be so helpful is the less stress on Dre's body playing 5. I think it's going to be very helpful for him because you remember he's had calf injuries, and which leads to like hamstring injuries and lower back injuries, and a lot of that is because he's like a 6'5" dude having to play center, and so hopefully that will allow him to be a little bit more of a free safety in those Al minutes. And we'll see if TJD could do anything there for them in the backup 5 minutes. We know that when Post is in the game, he's not in there to, really help anybody defensively. He's just out there to shoot threes. So
he was getting killed by Klingon.
I think if there's one person that I believe will take a step back this year, it is Quentin Post, because I think and it's because I think this team just has a higher idea for where they can go this year versus last year.
Yeah, and then the scout on him is just close out, like,
yeah,
which is valuable, to have them worry about you from 3. That's something nice to have.
All right, last thing, and then we'll go to some Valkyrie stuff. So Jonathan Kuminga, obviously, there's going to be lots of interest in him and where he goes and what they do. I think we were trying to figure out, if he signs, is he here for the long run, or is he going to be on the trade market like immediately? I think there's going to be, Warriors fans, especially Warriors Twitter, they're very perceptive to they're basketball heads. They know players on the other team. They know contracts. They know certain folks as
Not
far as
all of them on
not
Twitter,
all of
but
them, the smart ones, the good ones.
Yeah.
And I do think there's going to be like a list of players that people are going to be circling to add to the team and trade JK. And this gets to what you were talking about earlier, is like he's really the only piece that they have. So how do they maximize it? How does Mike Dunleavy like does Mike Dunleavy, is he actively like, what is he looking for, do you think, on the folks who he's going to target? Do you think he has like a list of players that he kind of thinks may be available? Is he looking at teams and seeing some teams, if they fall out, if someone gets hurt, if somebody asks out, if someone gets really frustrated? Like what do you think is going to be part of this Kuminga this Kuminga season watch thing? How much of like what is Dunleavy going to be doing to like keep an eye on who's the best trade targets?
I mean, I think he's already got a list of names in mind. But I think the NBA is just, it's hard to guess. Like, would you have guessed that the Warriors would have gotten Jimmy Butler, at the trade deadline last year at the price that they got him? Like, some stuff is just like, you can't even account for it. Like, that's how they got Jimmy was like such a steal. And so, that stuff like that can happen and fall into their lap. But I imagine he's got some names that he's kind of just monitoring. But I don't think, like, it's just hard because I think the player you want for Kuminga is like a Kuminga in the sense of he's a young player who is going to give you, a lot of minutes in the regular season. And hopefully who you get in return is someone who maybe fits the lineup better and can play in the playoffs and won't get benched by Kerr. But in an like ideal, he's young. This is a team full of older players and, one of the oldest rosters in the NBA. What you want is youth. What you want is players that can give you minutes. And while those older guys might need time to sit. So in theory, Kuminga's what you want. But I think just based off what happened with the contract negotiations and just how we've watched his 4 years play out, where it's like Kerr hasn't fully trusted him. And I don't think Kuminga's given him the greatest reasons to fully trust him. But that's just what you want. And I don't think that's what you can get with Kuminga. I don't think there's like a young player swap. I know people have been saying Trey Murphy. Like, I just don't see why New Orleans would want anything to do with JK for Trey Murphy. And maybe someone would say it's the third team
pick or two involved, don't you think?
Yeah, you'd give some firsts, but I just don't. I mean, the Pelicans to me have been making moves that don't make sense anyway, so maybe they can make another nonsensical move.
Joe Dumars, I don't get right?
Dumars, man. But I just think that's what it is. Like, it's just, I think what you want in return, some Kobe White was tossed around. Like, yeah, young player, like that sounds great. But I think you can't. Well, you can, but you gotta be careful about who you get in return for Kuminga, because you want someone that Kerr is going to play and is going to get minutes in the playoffs. But what
about two-way Wiggs?
I would love that.
I think a lot of fans would enjoy that. Not that we miss him necessarily, because with him and Butler together, there's a little bit of duplication.
Is there?
Defensively, probably. Jimmy, like plus minus always talks about how, for like spacing purposes, Jimmy Butler's best position on the floor with the Warriors might actually be power forward.
Yeah.
So, and it's not, if it would be different if Wiggs was like a dead eye shooter. He's not. Wiggs would be there to help with your defense, which I think they're going to need help with wings. At some point this year. Maybe they'll be so good offensively that they could get away with it, but at some point they're going to need to stop some really good players, and that may be like, if JK wants to put an imprint on this team, that may be where he could do it. But he's actually might be too big to guard some of these guys these days, though.
Yeah, the super small guys. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some WNBA. We'll talk about some Valkyries here. Let's get going with some pod holla. All right, the WNBA finals was a 4-0 wipeout. Though within that wipeout, I thought 2 of those games were awesome. I didn't get to watch game 4 because
I didn't watch Game 4.
my DVR didn't record it, and by the time I realized, like, I'd already seen everything that happened. But man, game 1 and game 3, I thought those were awesome basketball games. And it just goes to show you, like, when you have a superstar like Asia Wilson, this is a reason why the teams with the best players often win these, win the big games, like especially that game 3 game winner, just money. Can't say enough about her. Like what a season. And the only thing I'll say is I'm just so bummed it wasn't her and Nafisa in the finals. Like that would have been the ultimate, and it didn't happen that way. That's why you play the games. But she like 2 feet on the court, like this is my league, and I was so impressed with her.
Yeah, games 1 and 3 were incredible. Yeah, I think Satu Sabali being out for game 4, and then I think I tuned in when the coach was getting ejected and just kind of like had it on. Like it was over. It was over. I think I think I picked Phoenix to win. If we go back and look at,
didn't Ben and Sabrina pick Phoenix to win too?
They did. So I feel like not as bad about my selection, but I think it was just, they beat Minnesota, who I thought was the clear runaway favorite for the title. They beat them pretty convincingly. So I was like, surely they're going to, they had a little bit of extra rest in Vegas. Vegas went to game 3 against friggin' Seattle. They went to game 5 against an Aaliyah Boston-less, Kelsey Mitchell-less, Caitlin Clark-less. Indiana was the most hurt team in the league, and
they messed around until the finals. And they just kicked their butt in the finals.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like, I haven't really done like the deep dive on like why they went. It was so difficult for them in those first couple rounds, but Phoenix was the easiest matchup for them by far. But yeah, I know Kelsey played those games, and so did Aaliyah Boston, but they weren't there when the buzzer hit in the fourth quarter. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, no, I think just looking at how much they struggled against these teams that I thought were kind of way worse than them, and then they just didn't struggle at all against the team that beat who I thought would have won the title. So it was weird. That was a weird type of prediction and how it all played out. But it does just kind of attribute to Asia's greatness. And you said it in the Discord that it's kind of like interesting. You're watching like Michael in like real time.
And I got to watch Michael.
Yeah,
you're watching Steph and LeBron, I'm watching
Steph and LeBron, but I never saw Mike, and so it's kind of it's cool just to see it and just realize that like that's what's happening. She has 4 MVPs, 3 titles. I mean, no one else has 4 MVPs. Can she get one more title? Like to me, she's already the GOAT. But I know some people will have some of those players with 4 titles, whether it be Maya Moore, whether it be Cheryl Swoops, or whether it be just like really some of those dynastic players that were involved in that Minnesota or Houston dynastic run there. But to me, she's the GOAT. If she gets one more, like, I don't even know what else you could say. Like, if you're still trying to say that it's someone else, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and that kind of builds into this offseason. And we'll talk about what to look for the Valkyries, because Richard Cohen wrote a really nice piece in the Her Hoop Stats newsletter that we'll use kind of as for our primer. But before that, all the Kathy Engelbert stuff, whether or not they're close on a deal for the new CBA, I have to imagine the WNBA wants to relish in the idea that they could be so much part of this upcoming sports news cycle with their free agent period, because it's going to be nuts. Like, so many players are going to move teams. And then you got the expansion teams, and then you got the Valkyries and what Joe Lacob could do with some possible changes to the CBA, such as if you could go over the cap. Joe's like, hey, we're in business, baby.
Dude.
And so all of those things, like, you got to imagine that the sport, the whole league has to be like just licking their lips thinking like, man, we need to get a piece of this. Thus, let's get a deal done. Like, what is the minimum that the players will come down to, and let's just make it happen. But at the same time, He's talking about a bunch of rich dudes, like, using the commissioner to debate and to argue and to try and make a deal to negotiate with a players union who's kind of feeling themselves a little bit. They know that they're the product and that this product is hot, and they know that if you sign however long, let's say they sign a 5-year deal. If you sign a 5-year deal, you can't take advantage of the now again for another 5 years. So I know they're trying to get what they believe is theirs for right now. So, like, all things considered, best case scenarios for them to wrap this up quick so that they could take advantage of it. But I just don't know. I think the players are, not to say that the players are any smarter than any other union when it comes to this stuff, but I think there's a little bit of an independence in some of them that they may be willing to test their value a little bit, what they're worth. And I don't know if a lot of the other players who are maybe on the lower end of the salary structure are really into that. But at the same time, when you raise that salary structure, the bottom has to come up too. So, players making, I don't know what the bottom salary in the league is, 70,000 or whatever. Like 70,000 should come up to 120,000 or 150,000. And they will, if they can be a little bit more patient, those players will benefit as well. So it's really interesting. I always feel like the NFL players, they rarely take advantage of their leverage because they're the most popular sport in the US. And I always feel like the owners whip them when it comes to the CBA. And in basketball, in previous CBAs, except for this current one, I sort of felt the same, that the players would kind of whip in the owners a little bit. But the last CBA, the owners got this basically this locked salary cap that is killing a lot of the stuff that is fun about the league. So I'm just so interested to see how the Women's Players Association, how they get through this, and what is valuable to them outside of money. I'm guessing money is the most valuable, but what else? What else do they care about? Because you're locked in for 5 years and you don't know what you're betting, and you're also working with owners who have done this many times, because there's lots of the owners who also own NBA teams. So where do you sit with as far as predicting when this thing gets wrapped up? And I don't know, what do you think about how Kathy's been handling this?
Don't think Kathy's been handling this all too great. I think after Nafisa canceled their meeting that I guess they were supposed to have, then she went on like the Kamala Harris like book tour, or like she was there and talking to Kamala about it. And I'm like, oh my God, like Nafisa's just like got it all gamed out, like all these different things she can do to kind of like make Kathy indirectly look worse. So I don't know. I don't think it's worth trying to predict it, because I think a lockout is I don't know about very likely, but I just wouldn't put it past them. Like you say, like, I just think with how these players handle it, like you think about WNBA to NBA, like LeBron wasn't making no Nafisa type of press conferences. Like LeBron's not in the player meetings. Like just think of, Nafisa, like the WNBA players are not only leading by example, but they're also like leading, in different categories too, where Nafisa is like a vice president for the WNBPA. So is Brianna Stewart. NECA's the president. Like Asia would 1000% just be like, Nafisa, like whatever you say, like I'm with it. So I just think there's a different level of involvement and leadership in the WNBA as opposed to its male counterpart. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I think that the players are going to stand on business, man. Like I really do truly believe that they're not going to fold until they get what they believe is theirs. And I don't know for a fact what 100% is what they want. I mean, what they want is the higher revenue share percentage. that's like number one, because then that turns into more money per year for them. Of course, they're like, look, the NBA, it's like 50-50. We're like 13 or 9% or whatever the hell it is. Like, I think it's, like 9 or something, whatever it is. It's just, we want a higher percentage. That's what they want. But they also want, more roster spots, I believe. They want more type of, what is it, like the maternity parental support, or I forget what kind of like the top checkpoints were. But of course, it's money and then like roster sizes and stuff. But yeah, I think that there's I think that they are a smarter players union than most of the other leagues. Like, I know you said, you're not sure. I think they are. I think that it shows by their top players being as involved as they are. That shows power, man. And not taken away from like LeBron or like Steph or like KD not being in those meetings, like say CP3 was or whatever. But I think that there's, you gotta have strengths in those categories. And I think right now that WNBA players who play their best also have those strengths to lead in the Players Association as well.
Okay, let's talk about the Valkyries this offseason. So we've talked a little bit about the free agency, and again, we won't really know how to see this until the new CBA is signed, but the free agents on this team: Tiffany Hayes, Kayla Thornton, Monique Billings, Temi Fagbenle, they are all unrestricted. So whenever this thing gets figured out, they can go to any team that they want to, whoever has the highest offer or whatever team they feel is best for them. Now, we know that there's a core designation that may survive the new CBA. It may not. So we won't even talk about that here. Restricted free agents are Veronica Burton and Cecilia Zandalicini. And then we have this thing called reserve free agents. That's Janelle Salon, Letitia Amihir, Caitlin Chen, Ileana Repair. So I was looking up to see what the difference of the reserve free agents are, and it seems like it's
within your first 3 years of service time.
First 3 years, and the original team has exclusive negotiating rights if a qualifying offer is extended. And in contrast, restricted free agents have 3 years of service and can negotiate with other teams, but their original team has the right of first refusal to match any offer they receive. So kind of, it's not clear to me exactly how that works. And again, it's possible that they will change some of these things in the new CBA. The only two players,
really quick, like you know how Caitlin Chen got drafted by the Golden State Valkyries, right? She's on a rookie scale contract, and then they waived her, so she is no longer on a rookie scale contract. But then she came back. They can't re-sign her to a rookie scale contract. They had to sign her to like a standard deal. But because she's under 3 year service time, she is now considered a reserved player. Like, does that make sense? How like she was on a rookie scale, but then they had to cut her because she didn't make the final roster, and then they brought her back. But you can't bring her back on the rookie scale. So rookie scale is the restricted free agent, and I think the reserved is just more restricted than the restricted free agent. Like, it's more, it's like better for teams, I think, than the restricted free agent.
So okay, under contract, Carla Late. Under contract, Kate Martin, and we know they have the rights to Yuste Yotsite, who will be here hopefully next year. And so what does it mean for the 4 women that I mentioned to be free agents? Tiffany Hayes, Kayla Thornton, Monique Billings, Temi Fagbenle. Do you have a feel yet on who you think they may try and bring back, or what a priority might be for them as far as their free agents? I think all 4 of them were valuable to that basketball team, but if I was to circle who was the most valuable, it's got to be Kayla. But at the same time, she is coming off of a knee injury, and she is in her early, I think she's like 33. Tip Hayes is 36. So that makes it kind of interesting. But how would you prioritize those 4 players?
Kayla 1, Monique 2, Temmie 3, Tiffany 4. Like that seems crazy to say because I know like there's been many times on this podcast where I was like Tiffany's our best scorer. But I think that there is the potential to upgrade at the scoring position in the free agency. That Tip won 6 Woman of the Year, not of course this year, but the previous year, and they maxed her, right? I think they like maxed her for this season. So I just wonder what her price, like what she is looking to accept. Did she like the Valkyries enough to be like, no one's giving her a max, but like, did she like the Valkyries enough to come back on a cheaper deal? If so, then yes. But if she, you saw the injuries, like she just wasn't. She got hurt in a Phoenix Mercury game, and that was like with like a month left to go in the season, and she didn't make it back for the playoffs. Like I of course, she's 36, so of course I'm worrying about her injury more than I am Kayla, who had like a season-ending injury. Like I get it, but she is 3 years older and she's a little reckless, like in a good way. Like I don't think that's a bad thing.
She lays her body out on the line.
She's hustle, lays her body out like perfect, but like that can be like injury prone. That has more like ability to get injured, like we were saying with Jimmy Butler earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that her scoring ability is something that I think the Valkyries the Valkyries aren't gonna have like first choice in free agency, but I think that there's gonna be a lot of players who want to play for them that I think can fill that scoring gap. So that's why I put Tiffany lower. I think Kayla's defense and what she means to the team is kind of why I have her higher, like first all-star ever. Like I know that the offense was like kind of rough to watch at times, but you surround her with more offense. Like this team was like really low on offense, really high on defense, and that was kind of like their identity. So can you surround in the free agency with a little more like two-way players? I don't know. I would have Kayla 1 though.
You like Kayla's kind of I'm the one. Like give me the ball. Like let me guard the best player. Like there was a lot of that in her, and that kind of led the team a little bit. Like that created a little bit of a DNA. And when she did go down, it's almost like Veronica inherited that from her, and that became Veronica's personality as well, which is like,
I remember when we were doing our women's WNBA fantasy draft, like there were like 5 or 6 Valkyries taken just because we're like, I think maybe it's this one that's going to be like a good one for fantasy. Like we weren't sure. And so, Kayla did kind of step up and try to and take that and become the first all-star. And I agree with you. She goes down and Veronica takes it.
Okay, so here I'm reading from Richard's newsletter or Richard's post about the Valkyries. So Richard writes, part of the reason they might be reluctant to commit that cap space, meaning using a supermax, is that Golden State should now be a hot designation for free agents. They couldn't attract any huge names in 2025 because no one knew what they'd be walking into, but now they do, and it's almost all positive. Everyone's seen the crowds, the success that Nakase has had with whichever players are available, and how competitive this squad already proved to be. Combined with the facilities, the appeal of the West Coast, there could be a lot more players willing to take the Valkyries' calls this season. There are also plenty of playing time and slots available. They'll want to keep their core around, but that's a relatively small group. Burton, Salon, Thornton if she's healthy, and then whichever of the other Euros will come back at reasonable prices. So there's plenty of room for additions, especially in the paint. The roster might look different by next year, but they'll hope to retain exactly the same kind of spirit. Now, here's the question. Let's look at this from the perspective of the owners create a little bit of flexibility with the cap so that they may be able to go over slot to bring in somebody. We talked about this in the beginning of the season because we just wondered if it would be like this, but we learned that the cap was very restrictive, and and we said, you know what, Sabrina Ionescu, like she's going to stick in New York because there would be no monetary reason for her to leave the New York franchise. But if there is a monetary reason for her to leave New York to come to the Bay Area, could you see that as a possibility? Or would they look to fill out the roster with better, like you said, two-way players? Like, do you think they would go big star hunting, or would they just upgrade, some of the rotation so that they're just an all-around better team? Or maybe they try and do both. I don't know. I don't know what it looks like, but that thing about the new CBA and whether or not they would create these opportunities to make free agency a little bit more interesting, right? Which is part of the DNA of the NBA. You want to make free agency a little bit more interesting. It would be, not to say that she would come, but I think people will want to write those pieces about the Valkyries chasing Sabrina, and she's got to make a decision. Like, that is pretty interesting to me for a league that is in this early growth period, or not even early, but is now in a growth period, trying to create their own news ecosystem. Having those conversations for their best players drives interest for the league.
Yeah, I mean, feels all pointless to talk and think about this stuff because like we don't know. There might be a lockout. Like it even feels like you're saying a bad word when you say the word lockout. Like we just don't know. And I don't think there will be a monetary reason for her to come to Golden State. You think about the richest owners in the WNBA, and I imagine it's in no order, Joe Tsai, the size from the Liberty, Ishbia from Phoenix, and Mark Davis for Vegas.
He's actually not very rich at all. He's
interesting.
He's one of the poor. I think he may be the poorest NFL owner in the league.
How does that stack up though against Lacob being
I'm sure NFL? I'm sure Lacob has more cash than he does.
I actually haven't even looked at Mark Davis.
The thing about Mark Davis is that his Vegas team, what he bought it for versus what it's worth now, he's doing well.
Yeah, but just at least those three NBA owners that I could think of off the top of my head, being for Phoenix, New York, and San Francisco. She's on the Liberty. The size won't just it won't be a money issue if she wants to leave. Like I don't think Golden State will offer her more than what New York's offering her. So it'd have to be like,
well, they would have to, right? They would have to for her to even think about it.
But I just don't think it'll happen because New York's going to be like, we have the money too. We'll do it too. If there is a luxury tax, they will go into it too.
They will have to pay Brianna. If Sabrina gets paid, they're going to need to pay Brianna. Then what does Jonquel say? The Valkyries don't have that problem yet. And New York, if you were to raise these salaries and create a much bigger cap, and then now the investment is a little bit more, but at the same time, the what you would have to pay these women compared to what you're playing NBA players is like not even comparable.
That's why
maybe it is. But let's say Sabrina is $1.5 million. Like all of a sudden, Brianna's like, "Hey, I'm worth 2," and Jonquel's like, "Yeah, I'm worth $1.5 million or 2 as well." So then that investment for that big 3 is like $4 million versus,
and then Joe Tsai says
$600,000.
He says, "Wait, the rookie I just waived, Derek Whitehead, who was going into his 3rd year, actually makes that exact amount."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what we would think how it would work for sure. It should work that way. But
I think if Sabrina leaves, I think it's I thought Brondello getting canned was maybe like, okay, is she thinking about it? But then they're talking about bringing in an NBA coach, and I don't think she'd leave. Brianna and Jonquel. Like I think there's a run it back with them. I don't think it's time yet for Sabrina to come. I was kind of hoping for the Aces to lose because I thought Jackie Young would come if they lost. Now that they've won,
that's who I want.
Now that they've won, I don't think so. I think that all you've heard from the Aces is that they want to retain Chelsea, Jackie, and Asia. And if you're Jackie, you're so beloved in Vegas. And, there's talks of like, if you had lost, you'd only have 2 titles. And, the Minnesota and Houston 4 titles seems way more out of reach. But now that they've won, they're at 3. I think they can get to 4. So I just don't see her leaving. So, I haven't really sat down and been like, I just wonder, like, I feel like Ohema and Natalie are like pretty like communicative and there's like they'll be on the same page. And I just wonder if there's some stars that are maybe just like all offense, but don't try on defense. They're like, we wouldn't want that as a part of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
They almost work so well without a star because everyone came to work, and not that the stars wouldn't come to work, but just like there was this hunger that like, everyone just played with this fire that maybe some stars would be like, I'm the best. So like, get behind me. So, I haven't sat down and kind of looked at, because it's not that I have to look at who's available and who's not. Everyone's available, right?
Yeah.
Except for like players on rookie scale contracts and like 2 other, veterans. But other than that, all the best players are available. So I don't know. It's going to be fun. I think I might have already said, but I wanted Jackie and, man, it's only been 2 weeks and I'm starting to forget names, but the Seattle center that wasn't Dominique, wasn't NECA. Who's that? Who's the Australian? She has like an Australian accent, and I'm already forgetting her dang name. But anyways, it was those 2 players. But I mean, that's kind of shooting low to me. Like they're both
talking about Magbagor.
Yeah, Ezzy Magbagor. Like her and Jackie, I feel like would fit the culture so well, just being like 2-way players that would just. I think it would be great. But of course, now I don't think Jackie's coming. I think Ezzy. I think there's that's open. I think Temmy's spot in the starting lineup is something that I feel like needs an upgrade. I think Temmy's good, but I think for a starting 5, I think Temmy's good as a backup 5. Like as if you have this championship contending team, Temmy's your backup 5, not your starting 5. So I would like an upgrade in that position. Of course, like a lot of other positions need upgrades, but I think Janelle and Veronica you can in pen right now that they're starters. So we'll see with like what they do, if they do Janelle Chechi still as like a 3-4 combo, or if they maybe try to get taller at the 4 position, because some of these teams like basically start like 2 center height level players as your 4-5. But again, like I love doing the thought exercise. Like I love like just mocking players to teams and stuff, but it just feels a little different for this summer where there's so much uncertainty and there's so much like, actually, I'd rather that these players get everything that they're worth and owed and maybe I'll hold off on trying to get Magbagor. Yeah, Gabby Williams.
Rob wants Gabby Williams.
That would be awesome.
Shout out to Rob, who's checking us out on the live stream. Okay, so let's end the show with a little bit of draft board stuff. So this is from The 9. I think this is Hunter. Actually, I clicked on the link to the website. It is Emily Adler's post.
It's like 3 people contribute to
Hunter
it.
Cruz
Hunter,
and
Emily,
Lincoln
and I forget
Schaefer put together this list. So they put together an early draft board.
It's the one I go to every year. Not actually, it probably is my main one. Like them and the Athletic, and I'll use Conrado's this year.
Yeah, we'll have some stuff with Conrado for sure. But I'm just going to read through. If we believe that the Valkyries will have the 8th pick in the draft, I'm going to read through the top 8 picks. They specifically say we do not believe this will be the draft order, but this is just their evaluation rankings. So number 1, is it Awa or Awa?
Awa Fam.
Awa Fam from Spain, 6'4" center, 19 years old. Number 2 on their list is Olivia Miles, who we thought might come out last year, but decided to transfer from Notre Dame to TCU. Primary ball handler, and she's going to be someone to watch this year in college hoop for sure. Number 3 is Lauren Betts. Unfortunately for us, when we got to see UCLA play last year, Lauren Betts was in street clothes. She did not play, so it would have been nice to see her play in person. Number 4, Flage, 6-foot wing, LSU, and I think a lot of people, there's a fame aspect to Flage because she's been able to take advantage of her NIL and her Instagram, and I think she even raps. So she's probably a little bit even more famous than some of these other women because she's taken advantage of her platform there.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, Awa Fam probably is the least known, and she's mock number 1.
Yeah. Tanaya Latson, a combo guard from South Carolina, is their 5th. She's a Florida State transfer. And then number 6 is AZ Fudd, who is Conrado's favorite player in this draft. I think he's still. I can't remember if he had AZ or Awa number 1, but he's really high on AZ Fudd. 5'11". We saw her come to life in the 64 in the tournament last year. Someone we got to see in person is number 7, Kiki Rice, point guard from UCLA. She doesn't like the thing that is interesting, and maybe not interesting. Maybe it's something that people question her about. It's just her ability to score. Like she does, she plays like a point guard, but she doesn't play like somebody who, like, when you need a bucket, she's the one who you go to get the bucket. At least in the games that I've watched her, but she's still a really good player. And then number 8, Iana Martin from Spain, age 20. 5'9". Out of those players, obviously we were not going to be able to watch the international players regularly in college. You may be able to find them on YouTube streams, but who excites you for, just if you're looking on the DVR, you're like, what team do I want to follow? Like, what teams are you following so that you can watch some of these prospects?
Well, what's funny is that 2 of those are playing overseas in Awafam and Iana Martin. But I think UCLA's got 2 of them.
UConn's easy because
UConn's easy.
They're always on television. It would have been USC, but Juju already said she's going to be out for the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to watch Oklahoma this year because Aaliyah Chavez was the number 1 recruit up until, I guess, the very last second when they made Jazzy that went to USC as the number 1. But Aaliyah's like, I think she's like, you don't really see many Mexican hoopers, so, so I'm pumped. But who else? Like, I want to watch Michigan this year because I like their freshman trio or duo last year in Silas Swords. Who else am I gonna watch? Of course, Arizona. I'm gonna watch Texas because Madison Booker. I think she's really good. But from this draft class, like, yeah, UConn, UCLA, and then South Carolina. Like, you probably just can, if you're a Valkyries fan, you can just rotate through those. And then, even she wasn't mentioned, but Conrado likes Sarah Williams for the Valkyries. And she looked good. Yeah. Well, Quinones, isn't she? I think she's a freshman. I got to see a little bit of that exhibition. I think I clicked out at around halftime, but man, Sarah's strong. That's why I said in our Discord, I was like, if you did a draft right now, completely hypothetical, where the WNBA was like, we're doing super draft, everyone who's available in college, like, you could be a freshman, you could be Aaliyah Chavez, and you could be draft eligible next year. What would it look like? Juju number 1 for sure, and I have Sarah Strong at number 2. That's how good I think Sarah Strong is. She just looked so dominant and could do, like, it just looked like a warm-up game for her, and everyone else kind of, of course UConn's gonna kick the butt out of the Boston team, but Sarah just looks like a level above damn near everyone else except for, like, I guess AZ. But yeah, I think there may be more top heavy interesting talent last year. Not maybe, for sure. Paige would go number 1 in this draft. Maybe Dominique would maybe go number 1 in this draft. And then it's also different because the Valkyries aren't in the top 5. They're 8. So
yeah.
We watch Kiki. We like Kiki. She's not anything like super spectacular. I think you nailed it right there. I think she's like the era of, like, when point guards are not the best player on the team, like that era of the NBA. Like, I think she'd be great for that.
Well, she just gets everything organized. She's the adult in the room, but you don't look at her and go, wow, she's like super athletic, or she's this great ball handler. She's just solid. She's like solid everywhere. She's got that little mid-range. She can hit that mid-range. She'll probably, I don't know what her 3-point percentage was, but when we saw her go-to was like, pull up mid-range 15, 18 footer or whatever. But this will be a segment. We'll probably be doing a segment all through the college season of, like, who's kind of on the draft watch, who is looking good, and who might the Valkyries be interested in. I think it'll be really fun. It'll be a way to make sure that you pay attention to college, women's college basketball. So, all right, that's going to be it. The next time we come to you all will be after the Warriors' first game against the Lakers and I'm looking forward to it. Like, it's kind of like it's the beginning of an 82 game season, so there's like this long journey. So I have to pace myself, but for some reason, this is probably the most I've been excited since 2021. And not that I thought we were going to win the title in 2021, but it was just like, okay, after COVID, after that terrible Wiseman draft year and Steph gets hurt, we finally got the band back together and let's see what they can do, which would have been the first season that we felt comfortable with them since the finals when they lost. And then you're like, okay. And so I don't feel like that because obviously there's been many seasons and they made the playoffs and everything, but it just feels like they've fine-tuned the engine. And with Jimmy Butler and Al Horford, you're like, okay, this team can do something if things fall in the right spot. So, all right, we will be back next week with another edition of Golden State Hoop, talking both the Warriors and the Valkyries. Thanks to Rob for hanging out with us in the chat. So, again, GG at BSPNmedia.com. If you want to come hang in the Discord, shoot me an email. We'll get you an invite, and we'll get you in there. So, for Bri, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.